in theaters, and when you get the...
I got mad at Naomi one day and ripped up her picture.
Today, to have you tell us all the stories that you know, starting from your childhood, and when you met Grandpa, and when you moved to Tacoma, and up to the present day, and we're probably going to ask you some questions in between of everything. We want to just know all about your life, and about Grandpa, and about our moms, too. So we're going to have you, maybe you can start your first story with telling us about when you went to North Dakota.
When we went to North Dakota?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we lived in Minnesota, and there we had we were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children, and 3 of them died from diphtheria. They were all buried in one coffin, and I was my favorite one was Gertie. She was next to me, and she was just getting sick, and I hadn't gotten diphtheria yet. And we went to the window, and I said, "Oh, there is a screw, there's a wolf." She cried and cried. She got so scared, and I didn't say, I felt so bad. Then shortly after that, she died. And here I had scared her so bad. And then I stood and watched them when they put them all in one coffin. And they put Gertie at the foot. They put Miller and Gerda at the top. And I felt so bad that I thought Gertie should have been at the top. They could have put Millard at the bottom. But here it was Millard that was at the top, because he was the baby.
Oh. How old was Millard?
He was 15 months.
Oh. And how old was Gertie?
Gertie was she was about 4 years old.
She's quite young.
And I was 6. And Minnie was 8, and Gerda was 10.
Yeah. And
they had to, and we couldn't have a funeral because it was too catchy.
Oh.
And when we had it, and we had no telephone, no way of getting to know anybody. But my dad had to drive to town to get the doctor, and he treated us for diphtheria, for quinsy, and here we had diphtheria. And that night, my uncle saw a vision over his head, and he saw Gerda in a white dress over his bed. And he came the next morning, and he says, "Is everything all right?" And my mother said, "No, Gerda died last night." He says, "What time?" 12 o'clock at night. Yeah, that's when he saw the vision. So we got help then after that. Otherwise, we couldn't notify anybody. Nobody knew we were sick or anything. And so he sent his daughter over, and they notified my aunt Amalia, and she came and helped us. And Gerda died the 12th of January, and Gertie died, and Miller died the 17th, and Gertie died the 20th. And by that time, then my aunt's children got it, and she sent for another doctor, and he came. She sent him to our place, and he prescribed diphtheria. So he inoculated Minnie and I, so we lived. Otherwise, we would have been gone too. And so that was one episode in my life.
Tell her to tell about sod house they lived in.
Yeah.
The sod house.
Yes. Did you? Yeah.
Tell about the sod house, the mud house.
What did she say?
The sod house. Tell us about the
Oh,
sod house.
And then we moved to North Dakota. And my dad, my mother kept on after him and said, we gotta go to North Dakota because they were giving away land. He didn't want to go. And my mother, she kept on that he should go. And so he finally went. He says, I'll go and file on a homestead. Then I'll go out to Washington to my brothers. And so he filed, he went out in February, in the fall, I guess it was. And in the spring, then we came out. And here people were living in sod houses. And when they came to get us, it was a bright moonlight night. And so I said to Dad, I saw these mounds of dirt look like. And I said, who lives in that dirt pile? And he said, those are sod shacks. And when we came to Minnesota, came to North Dakota here, that's what we got to live in. And the ceiling was poles and straw, and then and we had little windows about like that. It was my cousin's house. We lived there for about a year, and when it was blowing in North Dakota, the dust from the sod would blow in, and we didn't have any separator to separate the milk. But we so my mother had to skim the dust off the milk, and one night we had an awful storm in May, and we had our house was just in a shed, a straw shed, and that my uncle had, and so my mother worried about the cattle because they were from Minnesota and they had been in the barn all winter, and here they had to be out like the North Dakota cattle, wild, and so it was storming, and we had been out playing, and we thought it was so much fun. And I come to the door, and my mother stood there, wiping her tears with the apron because she was worried about the cows. And of course, every calf that was born died, was born dead, because on account of the cows had to be out in that storm.
Was it too cold for them?
Yeah, it was too cold for them. And so that was, so then my dad decided to, he was going to build, so we built a place. I have a picture of it someplace, I'll have to look it up. And it was all sod roof. He built, it was one big room, and there we had it was Minnie and Debs and I, so, and then my folks, and in one room, and he put sod on the top for shingles, and when it rained, it would drip, but we had buckets sitting around all over catching the drips, and the pictures that she had, I guess Deb still has one, and it got wet, and you could see the streaks of the rain coming down on it. It was when it rained, then it was a leak all over.
Gosh.
And finally we got another house, so that had shingles on. So
Yeah.
we were dry after that.
Mom said you used to have a halfway house for cowboys and farmers.
Oh, we Quincy County, there was no railroad. So they used to come with their grain across to Whitehurst. And sometimes there was 50 in a row of grain haulers that would come. And they had to stay overnight, sometimes twice, on a trip into town. And we were one of them that they stayed at. And I still can't figure out how my mother could get a meal ready when they come just for supper. And then we made beds for them. I suppose we all crawled in one bed. And then we got so lousy from them because we didn't wash the bedding after they had been there. And we'd get lice, and there was no way except the fine comb to get rid of them. And my mother washed her hair in kerosene and everything. And here they had supper and breakfast, and my dad had a place for the horses with hay and oats for them. And we charged $1 a night. That's what they got for staying there. And my mother was noted for putting on such good meals, so they flocked there. But we couldn't take care of that many. So we had the certain ones that would always come and stay. Then they'd go into town and sell the grain and buy groceries, a whole bunch of them, and come back again to our place the same day.
Oh.
And so we had, and I remember my dad thrashed, and he went and I was his favorite. And so he bought me a coat. And I remember we were in bed, and he gave me the coat, and he didn't have anything for Minnie. And I couldn't stand that coat. I just hated it. I thought he should have bought for Minnie, too. And then my mother had made enough money, and the peddlers come around, and they had material, stuff, in suitcases. They could take the lid off this way. And so she bought Minnie a coat, and then after that, I liked the coat.
Oh.
And I had that coat, and when Alma was born, I made a coat for her out of it. It was that long that I had kept that coat.
Gosh.
Okay.
I hear you used to tell fortunes.
Oh yes, I used to. My mother was a fortune. She too used to tell fortune till it all came true. So she got scared and quit. And then when I was a young girl, I used to, I thought it was a lark to tell fortune coffee grounds. And so once I had my operation, I was in North Dakota and had my appendix removed because they had such a good doctor there. And two girls from, one girl from down by Whitehurst, and then one that worked in a bank in Northwood. They used to go to the restaurant, then they brought their cups up to me, and I had to tell their fortune. And everybody, it all came true, I kept on telling fortune till we had a school teacher that was at our place. And the year before, she had taught school down in the coolies there. And she met a fellow, and she got pregnant, and here she had this baby. So here I told her in her cup, we didn't know it till then. And I said, oh, you're going to get a letter, and it's all about a baby. And here the same week her mother came hunted up the father of the baby and made him marry her. Well, they never lived together, but he married her. And I quit. I wouldn't tell another fortune because I thought, maybe she thought I had been looking in her letters because she had gotten a letter from her mother. And I thought maybe so that was the end of my fortune telling. Oh, I could see everything, you know. I was a regular witch. Now I can't see anything because they don't have any coffee grounds anyway.
You're blind?
Yeah.
Very blind.
Oh God, what else did you want to hear?
We wanted to know how you met Grandpa.
Oh, Minnie and I was going into town, and my dad hooked up some horses, and we had to take a sack of grain along, so we had money for groceries. So we had to go to the elevator, and we had to cross the railroad track. And we had a couple of frisky horses, because my dad had just broke them that spring, and they were colts. And it's funny, he let us take them to town. And when we got in that hill at Whiter's, it was a steep hill. And by the way, when my dad first got there, he had a horse named Fly. And she wouldn't go up that hill. He had 100 pounds of flour. So he had to walk up the hill because the horse would absolutely refuse to take him and he got so mad at that horse, he was so embarrassed he had to walk up the hill with the horse. Well, there was a piece of linoleum laying there at that hill, and these colts, they looked and they started to snort, and oh, I had to get out of the buggy, and I had to pull, I didn't dare to lift it, so I had to pull it, slide it off the road. And but then when we crossed the railroad tracks and drove into the elevator, and Lars had just brought in a load of grain, and he thought, oh, those girls, and if a train comes, the horses might run away. So he drove out of and stayed there to watch us, so we were safe getting out of the railroad track. So we were safe getting out of the elevator. And then when we got into town, we tied up our horses just next to each other. And I didn't know him. I knew who he was because we had heard of them, you know, there. And I said, my, wasn't that a nice man? I said, to do that for us. And that was the first time I saw Lars. Well, we didn't see him then till he was a few farmers bought a thrashing rig. And here he sent a neighbor over to hire some cooks because he was the boss. And she came to us because she had a son that was my age, so she thought if she hired Debs and I, her son would get the chance to take me out. And they couldn't stand him, I didn't like him. And so here we were cooking for Lars. Well, Lars was so busy, he didn't have time to come in the cook car much. But his brother, Ivor, used to come in the evening and help us. And then he was a big fat guy, so we'd sit and warm our backs on him. And, he kind of liked me. But the second year we worked for Lars, then he started.
Okay.
From the second year? Well, let's talk, we'll ask her about when Grandpa started coming to the cook shack. Okay.
Go, it's
Oh.
going.
Okay, Grandma. Oh. Grandma? Grandma? Besta? You need to start off when Grandpa started coming into the cook shack.
Oh yeah, so after the thrashing was over, I guess he decided I was a pretty good cook. So he started to come and see me, and then all that lasted till the next November, and then my sister was having her first baby, was having toots, and she wanted me to come down and take care of her. I was going down to Leeds, and Grandpa says, "No, you can't go. We're going to get married. If you go now, then we wouldn't he'd probably lose me." So I stayed home, and we snuck off and got married. We took Debs and Tom along for witness, and we went to Stanley and got our license, and we found the Lutheran minister there, and we got married. No corsage, no nothing. And so we went to Minot for our honeymoon, and when we were on the depot, then here one of Lars's neighbors and friends of Worsted, he says, "What are you up to?" "Oh, I'm going to Norway," he said. And they were a little suspicious, you know. They knew he had been coming to see me, but he wouldn't tell them that he had got married. And so that was our honeymoon. We just went to, and then we went right up to Lars's home. It was up on a hill, and 2 rooms. And he had the iron bed in there, and I didn't want that in the front room, so we bought a couch, a leather couch. It's like the chair that Paula and Jeff has, that we got for wedding present to match it. And so we had to make that up every night and close it up every morning, because I didn't want a bed in there. And we had an old black stove, cook stove, and I had a linoleum rug in the front room. That was the rug I had. And oh, they thought I had it so cute, and there it was. We had the dresser and all that was in the front room. And we had the upstairs, and there was bed bugs. And I couldn't take anything upstairs or take it down. And I used to put kerosene in the springs of the bed up there, and then light it. It's funny, I didn't burn down the house. And I couldn't stand them, you know. And so we were so careful that they wouldn't come downstairs. And so then, of course, Alma come along. She was the first one, a baby. And I had to have her in a clothes basket, because I had nothing for her to sleep in. So I had put a bed pillow in the clothes basket, and that's what her bed was. And and then after a while, I got, somebody sold a crib, so I bought a crib for $5. And so she had the crib then after Bonnie came. And then Bonnie got the clothes basket. And when Alma was 2 years old, I was so tired, and I was going out to milk house, and I had one of the Astro girls was babysitting. And so I said to Evelyn, "Watch the kids now," I said, "and I'm going out to milk. And I sat down by one cow, and I thought, oh, I'm going to take my time. I'm so tired. I'm going to take my time milking." and I heard, Alma, Alma, and so up I went, you know, and out, and here she was. She was just 2 years old, and here I looked up in the windmill, and she was trying to get up on the top. There she was on top of the windmill, and I said, Alma, I'll come up and get you, don't move. But she went down 4 rungs before I got there, and I have been so, and I was scared of heights. I never dared to go up there unless it was like that. And then here I got a hold of her, and when we got down, she laid down on the ground, and she was afraid she was going to get spanked. So she says, oh, Mama, I am so sick. So I couldn't spank her. She was so sick. And then I was scared, you know, so Lars's brother Ivor came, and he says, take off the bottom rungs so she can't get up there. So then we did, Lars did that, he took off the bottom rung. But when Alma got out, she would just go one direction. She never stopped. But she had a dog, and that dog followed her. And and one day she had got away, and I had Bonnie inside. No playpen, no nothing but a high chair. And I went out to see where Alma was. I couldn't see her any place. And I was just panicky. And oh, what should I do? I had Bonnie in the house, didn't know place to put her, didn't know what to do with her. And so I started to holler for Alma. And here comes the dog up on the hill. And he stood there and looked at me, and then he looked at Alma, and he looked at me. I couldn't see her because she was over the hill. And so I thought she must be there when the dog is there. So I went in and tied Bonnie in the high chair. She was she was just about well, there was 19 months between them, so she wasn't very big. And I went out again, and I hollered for Alma, and the dog came back again. And he stood there, just showed himself, and then he started out, and I took off, ran all the way. Here she was going. And I'd bought her a coat. It was a red coat, and my Lars's uncle had his cattle running out. And there was bulls with them, you know, they were mad at red, so I thought, oh my goodness, if she gets over, they'll kill her. And I ran and ran. She just kept on going. And I finally caught up to her and got her turned around for home. And I thank that dog for, if it hadn't been for him, I don't know what I would have done.
Did you spoil him?
Huh?
God bless him.
What kind of dog, he said?
Oh, it was just an ordinary dog.
Just a mutt,
It was
huh?
a shepherd dog, you know.
A German Shepherd?
And so, but he was so good that when Alma cried inside, he cried outside. And then when she would go out to play, he'd come right up to her. She'd take him by the nose like this and kiss him right on the nose. But I thought
Very funny.
he was worth it because he was such a good dog. And Bonnie, when she got out, when she was out playing, she'd take off all her clothes. And she'd stay there and sit there in the dry grass without any clothes on. And when I heard the car drive up, I had to run out. I knew Bonnie wouldn't have any
Naked,
clothes.
huh?
but she never run away. And once we were out picking chokecherry stems, and we had to take Alma with us because she'd run away. And so we left Bonnie by the car, and she sat there by the car playing with some grass. And when we come back to check on her to see what she was doing, she had taken off all her clothes, sat in the dry grass, and I took a picture of her. So she wrote on that picture, "Me all bare," and so she spelled it like a bear, you know.
Grizzly.
So she has that picture yet. There's that in the.
Dry
Say,
grass.
Grandma, why don't you tell us the story about when Grandpa had a ticket to go on the Titanic?
Oh yeah, it was. His uncle came to Norway. So Lars was the oldest in the family, and he was supposed to go have the farm. So then he decided he'd come to America for 5 years, and then go back and take over the place. And so he got a ticket to go to America, and they were going on the Titanic. They had a ticket to go on the Titanic, and so there was a friend of his. They were going on the Titanic, and they were so mad because the Titanic wasn't ready, and so he decided to. And they'd go down and they'd look at that boat, and they were, oh goodness, a new boat, but it wasn't ready, so they had to, and this guy couldn't wait for it because he got a message from America that he had to come home sooner. I don't know what it was. And so they came on the Olympic to America, and Titanic went when it was supposed to go. And of course, it was supposed to be proof, solid, that it could stand, go against the
Glaciers?
icebergs and everything. So they had been celebrating on the Titanic, and I guess the captain just went against an iceberg. And of course, the Titanic went down. There was here they got the notice then that the Titanic had sunk, and their boat, something went wrong with that, and they were locked in their rooms, and they couldn't get out, and the boat was sinking, and they could see the water come up over the windows. And it had covered the window, and all at once they heard the motors start. And they started, and so then little by little they got up over the water. So he was lucky, and then he was supposed to go back in 5 years, and he never thought he had enough money. So I suppose God had fixed it so that he didn't get enough money because he was supposed to be meet me, you know, and they had girls in Norway that he thought he was going to marry.
Girls waiting back there for him to come home.
And so he so then it was 45 years before then his 2 cousins were going over to Norway, and I said, Lars, you're going. If they can go, you're going. No, I can't afford it. Can't afford it. It would take so much time, and he had to lay off work, and no, he couldn't. I says, if you can't afford it, no, it's just too bad. You're going. And I arranged everything for him. And I didn't dare say I wanted to go, because then I thought, I won't get him to go. And so I had paid everything, and finally got the room on the boat, And I said, now I got your room number too, sir. And he says, I am not going. If I'm going, you're going. That's all I wanted to hear. And downtown I went, and got, and then the boat was full. And so the travel agency called California, and there was one checkout, and it was a woman, so I got to go. And then of course Lars would go then, and he got me along. And then in Norway they said, why in the world does he have to take her along? I wrote and said that we were both going. Why does he have to take her? She'll can't talk Norwegian, and she'll be so stuck up. And so,
Stuck up Americans, huh?
Yeah, the American woman that Lars had. And so they were so disgusted. And we came to Norway, and I could talk better Norwegian than Lars could. And I had to help him. And they couldn't get over that. Oh, and his sister said, oh, you don't have to be afraid of Alma. She can talk Norwegian, and she isn't a bit stuck up. So I went over big in Norway with his folks were, his sisters and brothers were so nice. I just loved them all, except one brother. And he had a wife that nobody liked, that she had, he'd gotten to be pretty much like her. And during the war, we sent packages, and he sent, I sent them all to Torstein. I said, send to each one. I said, they enjoy getting packages. Oh, he says, Torstein will divide it all. And at Christmas we sent, I sent stockings and dress goods, and rice and prunes and coffee and everything like that. And they never got a thing. And I said, you got so funny relatives, I said, in Norway. Here, everybody else is getting thank yous, and we never hear that they get the stuff. So I said to, so he went and he bought shoes for his brothers. And so I said, now send one to Helgi. I said, so he did. And then we got a thank you from Helgi. He was so thrilled. And then Haugens went over, and they found out that they hadn't gotten a thing. There was a pound of coffee for each one, and a pound of rice, and a pound of prunes for each one of them. But Thorstein and Barbara kept it all. And there was a piece of material for all his sisters, and they never got a thing. And so when Lars's cousin came back, they said, you know, then Thorstein kept it all. And then when we were there, we were supposed to stay at their place. Well, then I cried because I wanted to stay at his sister's place, Karen, because she was just an angel. And then, we had to stay there. So then Lars wanted to go up in what they called Stabur, where they kept stuff, and he wanted to go up there. And Barbro had watched in the window when we were there, so she had called Thorstein, and he come running, and he says, no, Lars, you mustn't go up there. And Lars got so excited when he was called like that he come down and never went up. And the next morning there was a big padlock on that place. And there they had part of the stuff that we had sent them. And so I thought, okay, if you can padlock us up, on our suitcases because Bible would go in there and look, you know, and I lost some of that stuff too that she took. So she didn't go over, but we had to stay there. And Karen says, you know why? Because you will be invited out all over, and they never get invited out, but they'll be invited when you're there.
Oh.
So, when we come back, then some of the calves been here since, you know, to see us.
Good time.
Okay, we're taking a break. Why don't you tell them the story about my arm in the ringer?
Oh yeah, I was babysitting Karen. Mark and Naomi were in school and Karen wasn't, so I had to babysit her. I was down in the basement and I was washing clothes, and instead of turning the ringer off, I had to go to the deep grease or something. And I said to Karen, now don't get near that. And the minute I went, Karen stuck her hand in. And
Just like her mother.
Gloves on. She had the sweater and she had that purple velvet coat I had made for her. And she knew she had done wrong, so she didn't dare to scream. And finally, the ringer went in up to here. And I turned around, and there she stood. Oh, she was just scared to death, you know. And I didn't know. I was going to turn the ringer so she'd be wrung out again.
I could just see.
I thought, no. I stopped it. I pulled the plug and I thought, no, I might do something crazy. So I released the ringer so it got loose, you know, and I could pull her arm out. And
She dry?
then I didn't know what to do. And there was a lady, Heen's across the street. She was a nurse, so I ran over to her. And she said, well, she would take her to the hospital. So she took her to her and I to the hospital, or to the doctor, and nothing wrong. Her arm wasn't blue, didn't turn blue or nothing, but they put it in the sling, and oh, she was so proud of that sling. She thought that was something great. And so, one night, Lars was playing the accordion and she was dancing, and with her arm in the sling, so I took a picture of that. She'll have to get that. I have to look up sometime you'll have to come and look through the pictures and take pictures. And, but, oh, she was so proud. She thought that was really...
Well, what was probably one of your most special moments with Grandpa Lars? What was one of your most special moments with Grandpa Lars?
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah, he was precious. He was so good, and he was so kind, and he was so good to all the grandkids and everything. Like your Jim and Norris, they just loved him. And like Norris said, he's really the only dad I knew was Lars, because his dad died when he was so young. And so he wasn't around Elmer and Albert, you know, like he was Lars. Of course, Lars just loved them. Oh, he just thought he had the greatest son-in-laws, you know, Norris and Jim. And so they liked him, you know. So he was just good all the time.
Well, like when Bonnie hit the car.
Oh yeah, and Bonnie, she had to go to the UPS or something in Spanish. I was up in Seattle helping Lars's cousin, because her she had a little boy, Richard, and she didn't have any money, and he had needed to go to the doctor. So I went up there, and I took money along, and I took groceries along, and so Bonnie came home, and she had this, took the car. It was a new Plymouth, first new car we had, and oh, we thought we were really something. We could have a new car, and then she came down on 19th Street, and she bumped into a woman, bent the fenders, and I come home, and she says, "Oh, Mother, I did something I shouldn't have done today. I took the car and I bumped the fenders." Oh, I says, "Well, no, I knew she couldn't help it, and so I didn't say anything." And oh, she hated to tell her dad. And so when he come home, she says, "But Dad, I got something so awful to tell you." "Oh, what is that?" he said. And she says, "I took the car and I bumped the fenders." And he took her by the shoulder and he said, "Thank God it was the car. The car can be fixed, but you couldn't have been."
Yeah.
So my mom said that was
That showed what he was, you know.
Yeah. Soft, tender. Let's ask you about all the snowstorms. The snowstorms back in North Dakota.
Oh, Lars, that was before he was married. It was a snowstorm, and he had to go out and milk the cows and feed the cattle before he went to bed. And so he took a lantern, and so he decided he would look back to see, put the lamp in the window so that he could have something to go by. And he had a bucket of water and stuff, you know, he was going to feed the pigs. And so he decided to look back and see if he could see the light. And then he got lost. He didn't know what direction he was. He couldn't find the barn and he couldn't find the house. And he finally got to the fence. So he thought, well, that must be my fence. So he followed that fence. Well, then he got tired of carrying that bucket of stuff for the pigs. So he just left that and thought he had to take care of himself. So he followed the fence. Finally he got to the big bank, and he slid down just down, and there was a barn. But then he didn't know where he was. And he opened the barn door, and he didn't know his cattle because he was so lost. And so he wondered where in the world he was. So he finally come to his senses and discovered it was his own barn, and it was this big drift. So he had to stay there. I don't know if he stayed all night, but he found his direction, so he got to the house.
Gosh.
Was that a snowstorm?
It's in a snowstorm.
That was the North Dakota life. And then we lived on the farm, and we farmed, and we had 7 years that there wasn't a drop of rain. We just had, he had to take a government loan to buy seed and feed for the cattle. And so we had 2 quarters of land, and they were, so he had $3,000 against the 2 that he had for feed and seed. And so we finally went to Alexander, and there his friend, Ed Nylander, wanted him to go to a garage because he knew this garage was for rent. So Lars thought, well, that's a good deal. We can't live on the farm because when that last year we had some Russian thistle pollen. Yellow stuff. I have to laugh every time I see it because we hated it.
The yellow stuff? The yellow stuff?
The yellow stuff, she says?
Yeah, Russian thistle. And Lars, grasshoppers came. They came in so that we were gone. Tom and Debs and Lars and I and Alma and Bonnie went down to Bismarck and Mandan. We were going down there for a Sunday. And they had come in and they were so thick they couldn't hardly see the sun. And they landed, and when we come home, the sidewalk was full of them. We were laying, we had stepped on grasshoppers to get in. And they took everything. And I have 2 pictures. It was so luscious in the Lars hauled water all the time, and we had a crabapple tree, and we had the whole backyard full of the potatoes. They were up like that, and we had another ticket of wild plums, and then we had some flowers that we called the Ragged Woman. Well, and when we got back, there wasn't a potato. They ate every bit.
Wow.
They ate all the leaves of the crabapple tree, just the stalk left, and they ate up all the leaves of the plum tree. But the Ragged Woman, they ate the flowers and they left the rest. And the eggs were green.
Oh.
Grandma?
We had some bad years, so then we decided farming wasn't for us.
Stop talking, we're not recording.
Yeah, we're recording now. Grandma White?
So we went to Alexander, and Alma started school there, and Bonnie started school, and we lived there till Alma had 1 year left of high school, and then Lars says, we better go out west. He said, because now they had the shipyards, and he says, we want the girls to go to PLU, go to Christian college. So that's how we came out west. So.
Did you have a question, Mark?
That was the question I was going to ask.
About coming to Tacoma. Well,
Yeah.
tell us about
I
when you
know.
came to Tacoma.
Or about Grandpa owning a bar.
Oh yeah, well.
That's a good story.
He was in the garage with Ed in Alexander, and Ed took over the books. So Lars wanted to see the books. He gave us so much money, and so Lars wanted to see the books, and he says no. So Lars says, well, he says, in the morning, you have to buy me out or I'll buy you out. I can't go on like this, he said. So in the morning, and he had bought a house in Alexander. He paid for the house, and then he divided what was left between the 2 of us. So he had to pay for his house too. And then then Lars went into to the fellow that had a bar. He went with him, and he says, you come over and go in, because he was selling knickknacks, and he wanted to go on the road to sell knickknacks. So Lars went in, and he had gambling in the back, this Chapman. And so we went on, and he says, well, If it don't work with me, I want to come back in with you, he said to Lars. So it didn't work. It didn't work with him. He came back and he wanted to go in with Lars, but then the mayor of the town, he was the butcher shop, and he says, you're running a clean place, he said to Lars, and if Chapman comes back, tell him he has to come to me to get his license. So Chapman came back and he wanted to go in with Lars. Lars says, you have to go to Tank, he said, get your license. When he got to Tank, Tank says, no, I can't give you a license. So he left town, he moved to Redmond, Washington, and with his family, because he couldn't get there, and he wouldn't let him have the license. So Lars, he had Lars, so that Lars went in, had his.
Any last things we're going to say? We've got 1 minute left on the tape. Any last things you want to say, Grandma?
You got 1 more minute on the tape. You want anything last minute things to say?
Oh, well, then we came out west. He had the bar for 12 years then.
Oh.
In Alexander. And the gun that Jack has, the young kids, when they needed money, they'd come to us, and he'd let them have money. And this kid, he gave security. He gave Lars the gun, and when he got enough money, he'd come and get it, and he never got it. So that used to be mine. Then I used to hunt pheasants with Lars.
Yeah, well, Beste 1 and Beste 2.
We'll do this again, Grandma.
The sequel.
We'll have to do this again. You've got so much to tell. Well, we could finish off with pictures
Your
and
mother should be happy now because she's been wanting this.
Here's the pictures.
On tape.
Yeah, we got it. Thank you, Grandma. We love you, and we're so glad that you've shared. We've got to share our lives with you. And thank you so very much for making us all possible. Yeah, we wouldn't be here without you.
I would. Like Lars used to say.
We'll be here.
You're responsible.
Yeah, that's right.
Paul and I'd be hanging out in some bar.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, should we all say goodbye then? On the tape.
Bye, Grandma.
Okay, wave goodbye on the tape. Goodbye, Grandma.
Bye to the tape.
See you later.
Thanks, Grandma, for sharing all that
Bye,
wonderful
Katie.
stuff. We'll hear more
We
later.
got to get Mary in there, too. Okay, Mary, you in there? Okay, smile to the folks. There we go.
Okay,
Get around,
everybody,
Grandma.
kids in the other room, come on in if you want. Say goodbye.
Best of the best here.
Yeah, there we go.
You see Paula?
Yep, I get Paula.
And
Great. Paula, you're showing me around.
Wait, you guys get in here.
Bye.
Get down here, quick. Get down here. Hurry.
Down here.
Nelson boys.
Okay, Nelson boys, get down here. Josh, quick.
Come on, Josh.
Where's Sam?
Come here.
Say
I can't see Josh.
Where's Billy? Come on.
over here.
Come on. Where's Brianna and Billy?
Okay, you got 10 seconds left. Okay. Okay.
We can do a Grandma's picture. We don't need Grandma's pictures because we're all here. No, here's a picture right here.
A close-up of the picture. Hold them right in front of the camera there.
Why did she leave?
Why did she leave?
Okay, wait a minute now. Let me do something here.
Important job.
Sideways, Naomi.
Hey, to chip the kid. No, these are Carl's.
This one now.
Oh, well, before she liked sitting on my lap.
It's only when I'm around.
We rock.
Next one.
If she sees me around, then she would.
And this is the last.
Can I do those
She's
up
got a
again?
raging ear infection
Okay,
again.
yes, that's Carl.
When we went in on
Every time I see that kid.
I know. When we went in on Friday, I told Billy we're getting into fire.
Yeah, trying to take real close-ups of certain pictures.
There's Beste.
That's
How
our
old-
best
How old was she then? How old is here in this picture?
Probably at 80 something.
How old? Well, I don't know. She's 94 right now, today, as you saw her. Just a young thing.
Here's Grandma.
Better die.
From Mother.
It's a very much.
Oh, Spanner.